So the 60s, this type of stuff, anything that says the Fillmore or Winterland, as you're researching, look for dates, but also look for the names. Now, the 70s started off psychedelic as well. It was a bridge. So you started having things like this kind of scripty font. You had your Grateful Dead, high points of your Grateful Dead posters at this time. The skull, the roses, the bears, Humphreys McGee. But this didn't last long because in 1971 we lost Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, and Janis Joplin all in one year. So the crest and the high point of Woodstock and Vietnam protests and everything, it just kind of collapsed in on itself. So we start going into the 70s, and we still have the psychedelics, Jethro Tull, Bob Marley and the Wailers. But then we start getting into this, where the psychedelics have survived, but not so much in the text, but in the photography. So here we have a completely washed out, high contrast image. Jethro Tull, the lead singer, Ian something, I can't remember his last name, flute player. But the simplified image, and we're back to block type, but you'll notice it's all like lowercase. You have more classic plays like Ray Charles, but we have this psychedelic echo, but it's not as prominent as it once was. It's starting to die off. One of the last Janis Joplin posters, we're still at that high-end psychedelics. But then we start to see things like early Black Sabbath, where they're taking old graphics from books about the occult and things like that. This is from 1971. So heavy metal, that dark, spooky sound, witches and devils and things. We have, as we go along, we're back to that gradient poster again, 1971. In the War Rally, the Grateful Dead at Yale University. So we get further into the 70s. Like, this is very early, you can see here the afros are starting to get bigger. We're moving into, this is Kool and the Gang, the Shy Lights. This is, again, very much a black show, but they were getting more mainstream. And it kind of went back to the 50s a little bit, but the images are looking a little different. The simplification is coming back. Pink Floyd. Just a touch of psychedelics are echoing, still remaining, but we're leaving that behind. And we're going through. Okay, we got down here. Here we go. The psychedelics again, still there, but not quite as much. The band 10 years after. I'm getting that swoopy 70s font. That Chilliwack, the Coliseum concert. Let's see. And then, funk came along. And you had artists like Bootsy Collins and Parliament Funkadelic. And it started going from, it was still psychedelic, but now we're getting almost into urban street art graffiti. 1974, glam has arrived. Kiss is arrived. Simple, very graphic, silhouetted. Their makeup's not even finalized yet. Excuse me. And then as we go down, you can still see the psychedelics is still trying to hang on. But look at this. Extremely simple. Red on a yellow background. George Harrison and Bob Marley in 1975. My God, that would have been incredible, except I was 1 month and 2 days old, so I wouldn't have remembered it. Man, what a show. Alright, and as we start to keep going down, I know it's jumping around. Here we go. Brian Cadd and his bootleg family. Again, that washed out. And I'll show you how to do duotones and things like that. The government of Australia presents. Hoo hoo hoo. So he must have been an Australian celebrity. So let's keep chugging down through the 70s. I don't know why that keeps jumping back up there. Okay, Grateful Dead. The psychedelics, we have the Art Nouveau, Alphonse Mucha Woman, but very simplified. It's not a big festival, Still holding on to some things, but not really. It's still much easier to read. The band Chicago, complimentary. Purple, limey, gold, yellow, green. And this is in Portland. So, and then, all of a sudden, we have in the 70s, the Rolling Stones had a resurgence. And this was kind of a spoof. This wasn't an original one. This was a spoof of, even the pictures they used were younger. Well, actually, no, that might be one from the mid-60s, so that one shouldn't be in this list, but algorithms being what they are. Okay, then you start having things like this. The Mothers of Invention. This is Frank Zappa. You'll see his face on the pig in concert, one color, super cheap, almost punk. Like, you can come if you want, we don't care, we're going to play. Let's see here. Still some early Fleetwood Mac, still holding on to that psychedelic look, but it's starting to go away. And again, Motown had a whole different animal. Aretha Franklin Review. This was a very simple, still, if you took one tiny piece out of one of those 50s posters, they promoted class. The Jackson 5, Diana Ross, is 1971. Just a little bit of the gradient survived, really cheaply made. Let's keep going down to the 70s. Okay, here's a great one. REO Speedwagon, The Cars, and Ian Hunter. Really simplified, and also starring very special guest star. And then there's all this stuff, and of course now tickets are almost $15. My God! Outdoors Under the Sun and Stars at the Rockford Speedway. So again, extremely simple, two color. I know I'm droning on and on. Bear with me. Let's see if we can get to some. Okay, you started seeing in the 70s as well these stacked, and they're all using the Leonard Skinner font. Alright, let's keep trucking a little bit. We start to get some simplified things like this. Very early Queen. It's a black and white poster. That's all it is. I mean, it's just the band name, logo. At that time, that's what their logo looked like. And, yeah, that's it. They were nobodies. They were nothing. They're gonna put on a show. Aren't you happy? Here's a good 70s one. Elton John. Still a little bit of psychedelics, but we're pretty much gone from that. We're moving toward arena rock. Again, there's the gradient poster. The old standby still coming back. This is again 1966, so let's keep going down. Here we go. Glam, the New York Dolls, the Hollywood Palace, one color, just to tell you the date. At, in Baltimore, live in concert. We're pushing closer and closer to punk and glam rock, Kiss. Now here's the Rolling Stone. This is 1981, and really weird, off-color, segmented illustration. So let's not jump too far ahead into the 80s yet. Let's see. Well, I think we may have to. Oh, here's one in the 70s. Look at that. Sly and the Family Stone featuring Little Feat. I mean, it's a one color. And much more funk and soul. But now we're pushing into the... Let's see if we can find another. If I can find one more really good 70s one, we'll move on. Okay. This Van Morrison, it's a poster, it's on a t-shirt. But yeah, something like this with the beveled cutout. That was very special of the 70s. It had a very distinct, trimmed down look for as much as the excess of the 70s were. Now, when it came to disco, there really wasn't disco concerts. Disco was done in the clubs. So what I did dig up for that was posters for Studio 54, which was the dancing, drug haven, sex party forever. It never ends. And you had ads in newspapers and posters and stuff like this. Studio 54. It was just the 54 logo, that Art Deco font. That was their logo. The devil tail. But this right here, this one especially, nothing screams the 1970s more than this. You couldn't get any more 70s than that. I mean, that's yeah, that is the late 70s in a nutshell. That is the disco era. That is debauchery. That is Saturday Night Fever. So Studio 54, that's where the 70s lived when it came to pop music and disco music. So now, jumping ahead through the 70s, you also had the arena rock era. You had bands like Boston. Their concert posters were usually their album covers. The Hyperspace Tour, the 40th Anniversary Tour, whatever. And their logos were much more like, this is when bands started having logos. Real, honest-to-God branding. And the arena rock of Boston, Journey, Peter Frampton, groups like that, just, huge, crazy things. Like, yeah, something like this. This would be that's their concert poster. And the red orange would definitely catch your eye in the city. Much like this Led Zeppelin one at Boston Garden. You can barely even read the red text. And there's a small image down here of Robert Plant, Now, when we jump out of arena rock in the 70s and disco and Studio 54, we hit punk. And then the punk posters were raw, quick, thrown together, almost looked like a ransom note. Images is crazy images that they would swipe and cut out, put more images on them, and Welcome to 1984, the Dead Kennedys, Misfits. I mean, look at this. It's just some old photographs. They put it on a damn Xerox machine, wrote their logo in magic marker, and put the date, and that was their poster. Punk didn't give a damn about anything. Sometimes they used old history book black and white photos, and you could see, I mean, it's literally, you could see the scissor cutout of this, and they glued it all up on a piece of paper. And this was back when the days that the first copy machines were available, like at post offices and libraries. And these kids in these leather studded jackets and tall green mohawks would walk in there and be like, I'm going to make 500 copies of this. And then they would go and post it, and they had the staple gun, and they were going along, and every telephone pole in the town had one of these. Different weird underground illustrations they would find, like at that time they were booming comic book artists like Robert Crumb, and some of these sci-fi weirdos that were doing things. Some of them got a little more put together, hired somebody, like bands like the Cramps, and there was kind of this Rocky Horror Picture Show, rockabilly, Halloween, Rob Zombie before Rob Zombie existed type of life. A Night of Pure Energy, The Clash, just some grainy ass photos, some text, just all pasted together real sloppily, and then Xerox the hell out of it. So punk was a totally different look. Now, as it went along, you had some people that would put a little more effort into it, like this, or the Cramps.